Danny Carter pushed his cleaning cart down the long hallway of the embassy. The wheels squeaked softly against the polished black floor. It was late at night, and most of the diplomatic staff had gone home hours ago. Danny liked working the night shift. It was quiet. It was peaceful. And most importantly, he did not have to deal with the terrifying dragon people who ran this place during the day. They were one of the oldest species in the known galaxy. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves and hitting each other with rocks. They looked like the dragons from old Earth fairy tales, except they were real. They stood 8 feet tall on average, covered in thick scales that could be any color from deep red to bright blue to shimmering gold. They had long tails, sharp claws, and faces full of teeth that could bite through steel. Their eyes glowed like hot coals, and their voices sounded like thunder rolling across mountains. Danny was not afraid of them exactly. He had grown up in a rough neighborhood in Cleveland, and he had seen plenty of scary things in his 26 years of life. But they were different. They were so old and so powerful that being around them made Danny feel very small and very young, like he was a child standing in a room full of ancient giants who could crush him without even trying. But a job was a job, and this one paid well. Danny had taken the position 3 months ago after leaving Earth. He had needed to get away from some bad memories and worse decisions, and working on a space station at the edge of human territory seemed like a good way to start fresh. The embassy on Station Nexus 7 needed human cleaning staff because the dragon people considered such work beneath them. Danny did not mind. He was good at cleaning, and he was good at being invisible. Both skills had kept him alive more than once. Tonight, he was assigned to the secondary reception hall. It was a large room filled with expensive decorations and strange plants from the walls were covered in panels of black stone that absorbed heat and kept the room warm, just the way the dragon people liked it. Soft amber lights glowed from fixtures made of crystal and gold. Everything in the room probably cost more money than Danny would earn in his entire lifetime. He started with the crystal fixtures, carefully polishing each one with a soft cloth. The work was boring but satisfying. He liked seeing the crystals shine when he was done with them. It made him feel like he had accomplished something, even if it was something small. Danny was halfway through the 3rd fixture when he heard a sound. It was soft, almost too quiet to notice. A scraping noise like claws on stone. He stopped polishing and listened. The sound came again, from somewhere behind a large decorative partition that separated the main room from a smaller alcove. Danny set down his cloth and walked slowly toward the partition. He was probably just hearing things. Maybe a small animal had gotten into the embassy somehow. Or maybe one of the cleaning robots had malfunctioned and was bumping against the wall. There were 100 possible explanations, and most of them were boring. He walked around the corner of the partition and stopped. There, crouched behind a large potted plant, was a small dragon. She was tiny by standards, no bigger than a human child of 5 or 6 years old. Her scales were a pale lavender color, almost see-through in their delicacy. Her eyes were not the burning gold of adult, but a soft violet that seemed too large for her narrow face. She had small wings pressed flat against her back and a thin tail that curled around her feet. She was gripping the edge of the plant pot with both claws, and she was staring at Danny with an expression of pure terror. Danny had been around enough scared children to recognize the look. He had 5 younger siblings back on Earth, and he had spent most of his teenage years taking care of them while their mother worked double shifts. He knew what fear looked like on a young face, even if that face was covered in scales and belonged to an alien species. He crouched down slowly, making himself smaller and less threatening. He kept his hands visible and his movements gentle. "Hey there," he said softly. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The little dragon did not move. Her violet eyes stayed fixed on his face, watching him like he was a predator about to attack. "Are you lost?" Danny asked. "Do you need help finding your parents?" The little dragon's mouth opened slightly. Her lips moved, forming shapes, but no sound came out. She shook her head, a quick, jerky motion. "Not lost," Danny said, "just hiding." A small nod. "That's okay. I used to hide too when I was little. Behind the couch was my favorite spot. My mom always found me though. She said I breathed too loud." He smiled gently. "I'm Danny. What's your name?" The little dragon's mouth moved again. Danny could see her trying to speak, could see the effort in her face and the strain in her small body. But nothing came out. Not a single sound. Her violet eyes filled with frustration and she looked away, her wings pressing even against her back. Understanding hit Danny like a punch to the chest. He had seen this before. His little sister Lily had been the same way. The doctors had called it selective mutism at first, then developmental speech delay, then half a dozen other fancy names that all meant the same thing. She could not talk. Her brain and her mouth just did not work together the way they were supposed to. Lily had not spoken a single word until she was almost 5 years old. Their mother had cried about it every night when she thought the children were asleep. The doctors had said Lily might never speak at all. They had been wrong, but it had taken years of patience and love and hard work to prove them wrong. "You can't talk, can you?" Danny said gently. The little dragon shook her head. Her small body trembled, and Danny realized she was trying not to cry. "That's all right," he said. "You don't have to talk. Some of the best conversations I've ever had were with people who didn't say a word." He sat down on the floor, crossing his legs. The polished stone was cold through his uniform pants, but he did not mind. "My little sister Lily couldn't talk for a long time, years and years. Everyone was worried about her. They took her to doctors and specialists and all kinds of people who were supposed to help. But you know what actually worked?" The little dragon looked back at him, curiosity slowly replacing fear in her violet eyes. "Singing," Danny said. "Well, not real singing at first, just humming. I would sit with her and hum songs and she would listen. Then one day she started humming along, just a little bit at first, so quiet I could barely hear it. But she kept doing it and her humming got louder, and then one day words started coming out. Not all at once, just a few at a time, but they came." The little dragon's eyes were wide now. Her grip on the plant pot had loosened, and she was leaning forward slightly, hanging on every word. "Do you want to try?" Danny asked. "Just humming, no words, no pressure, just sound." The little dragon hesitated. Her small claws flexed against the ceramic. Then slowly she nodded. Danny smiled and began to hum. He chose an old lullaby, one his grandmother had sung to him when he was very small. It was a simple melody, soft and slow, with no real beginning or end. The kind of song that could loop forever without getting boring. He kept his voice low and gentle, not looking directly at the little dragon. He had learned with Lily that eye contact could feel like pressure. Sometimes children needed to feel unobserved before they could find their courage. For a long moment, there was only Danny's humming and the soft hum of the embassy's climate control systems. Then, so quiet that Danny almost missed it, another sound joined his own. The little dragon was humming. It was rough and uncertain, more vibration than melody. She was not following the tune exactly, just sort of feeling her way along the edges of it, but she was making sound. Actual, deliberate sound. Danny kept humming, careful not to react too strongly. He did not want to spook her. He just kept the melody going, steady and patient, like a path she could follow if she wanted to. The little dragon's humming grew stronger. She was finding the rhythm now, her small body swaying slightly with the music. Her violet eyes had closed and her wings had relaxed away from her back. She looked almost peaceful. Danny reached into his pocket and pulled out his harmonica. It was a battered old thing, dented and scratched from years of use. His grandfather had given it to him when Danny was 8 years old, and he had carried it everywhere ever since. He was not a great player, but he knew enough to carry a tune. He brought the harmonica to his lips and began to play, picking up the lullaby where his humming had left off. The little dragon's eyes opened, watching the strange instrument with fascination. But she did not stop humming. If anything, her voice grew stronger, more confident. They played together for several minutes, human and dragon, making music in the empty reception hall. Danny shifted from the lullaby to other simple songs he knew. Children's songs mostly, the kind with easy melodies and repetitive patterns. The little dragon followed along as best she could, her humming weaving around the harmonica's notes like a second voice. Then something happened. The little dragon's humming shifted. It rose and fell in a new pattern, not quite following Danny's melody anymore. It was becoming something different, something that sounded almost like words. Danny stopped playing and looked at her. The little dragon's eyes were open now, staring at him with an expression of shock and wonder. Her mouth was moving and sounds were coming out. Real sounds, deliberate sounds. "Was that," Danny breathed, "did you just try to say something?" The little dragon's violet eyes were as wide as moons. She opened her mouth again, and this time Danny could hear it clearly. It was rough and broken, more growl than speech, but it was unmistakably a word. "Dan." Danny felt tears spring to his eyes. He blinked them back, not wanting to scare her with his reaction. But his heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. "Yeah," he said, his voice shaking. "That's right, that's my name, I'm Danny. Can you say it again?" The little dragon took a deep breath. Her whole body seemed to concentrate, focusing everything she had on the sound she was trying to make. "Danny." The word came clearer this time, stronger, and the little dragon's face transformed with pure, radiant joy. She had done it. She had actually done it. "Danny," she said again, and now she was laughing, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Danny, Danny, Danny." She launched herself at him, wrapping her small arms around his neck and holding on tight. Her scales were warm against his skin, almost hot, radiating the internal heat that all possessed. Danny caught her awkwardly, patting her back with one hand while trying to keep his balance. "You did it," he said, laughing too now. "You really did it, you spoke." The little dragon pulled back, looking at him with those enormous violet eyes. Tears were streaming down her scaled cheeks, but she was smiling. Actually smiling, with all the teeth that looked terrifying on adult but just looked cute on her young face. "More words," she said, the phrase coming slowly but steadily. "Want more words?" "Okay," Danny said. "Okay, we can do that. We can do as many words as you want." He thought for a moment. "How about your name? Can you tell me your name?" The little dragon concentrated again. Her mouth moved silently for a moment, practicing the shapes. Then she spoke. "Yeah." Danny repeated. "That's a beautiful name. It's very nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you," echoed, and then laughed again at the sound of her own voice. "I am talking. I am making words." Danny could not help but grin. Her joy was infectious, spreading through him like warmth from a fire. He had not felt this good about anything in a very long time. "You are," he agreed. "You're doing amazing." They sat together on the cold stone floor and Danny began teaching more words. Simple ones at first. Hello, goodbye, yes, no, please, thank you. She absorbed them like a sponge, repeating each one over and over until she could say it clearly. Her voice was still rough, still unpracticed, but it was getting better with every passing minute. Danny had no idea how long they sat there. Time seemed to lose meaning as he watched discover the power of speech. It was like watching someone see color for the first time, or hear music after a lifetime of silence. Every new word was a miracle. Every sentence was a triumph. What Danny did not know was that they were not alone. High above the reception hall, hidden behind a one-way observation window, someone was watching them. Ambassador had lived for 437 years. In that time, she had seen empires rise and fall. She had negotiated treaties that prevented wars and prevented treaties that would have started them. She had survived 3 assassination attempts, 2 political coups, and one very memorable incident involving a rogue artificial intelligence and a cargo ship full of explosive chemicals. She was one of the most powerful in the galaxy, respected by allies and feared by enemies in equal measure. None of that had prepared her for this moment. She stood at the observation window, her claws gripping the frame so tightly that the metal groaned in protest. Her burgundy scales, darkened with age to the color of old wine, seemed to tremble slightly. Her golden eyes, which had watched civilizations burn without flinching, were filled with tears. Her daughter was speaking. Had been born 7 years ago during one of the most difficult periods of long life. A diplomatic crisis with the Confederacy had pushed the galaxy to the edge of war, and had been working around the clock to prevent catastrophe. She had barely been present for her own daughter's hatching, arriving at the nursery chamber just in time to see the tiny lavender dragon emerge from her egg. The first sign that something was wrong came within hours. Hatchlings usually began making sounds immediately, chirping and squeaking as they explored their new world. Was silent. The nursery attendants assumed she was simply a quiet child, and exhausted from her diplomatic duties, had not thought to question it. As the months passed, the silence continued, grew and developed normally in every other way. She learned to walk, to fly, to read and write. Her mind was sharp and curious, absorbing knowledge like a flame consuming fuel. But she never spoke. She never made any sound at all. The healers examined her extensively. They scanned her brain and analyzed her vocal cords and tested every aspect of her physiology. Everything was normal. There was no physical reason for her silence. The problem was somewhere deeper, somewhere the healers could not reach. Consulted experts from a dozen different species, human psychologists who specialized in childhood development, sound shapers who could manipulate vibrations at the molecular level, mind weavers who could enter the consciousness and untangle psychological knots. None of them could help, remained locked in her silence, trapped behind a wall that no one could breach. Some of the experts suggested that the problem was emotional. They theorized that had experienced some trauma during her hatching, some shock that had closed her voice away. They recommended patience, love, and support. They said she might find her voice eventually when she was ready. Had tried everything. She had reduced her diplomatic duties to spend more time with her daughter. She had hired the best tutors and therapists in the galaxy. She had taken to sacred sites on the hoping the ancient energies might unlock something within her. Nothing worked. The other had begun to whisper. A mute dragon was almost unheard of in their society. The voice was sacred to the people, the vessel through which they expressed their inner fire. A dragon who could not speak was considered incomplete, diminished, broken. Had silenced the whispers with cold glares and sharp words, but she could not silence her own fears. What if never spoke? What future could she have among a people who valued voice above almost everything else? Would she spend her entire life in silence, watching others communicate while she remained trapped behind her invisible wall? Had brought to Station Nexus 6 months ago, hopping the change of environment might help. Human space was different from territory. The humans were a younger species, less bound by tradition, more open to unconventional solutions. Perhaps here, away from the weight of expectations, might finally find her voice. For 6 months, nothing had changed. Had attended therapy sessions and played with children of other species and explored every corner of the embassy. She had remained silent through all of it, her violet eyes full of words she could not speak. And then tonight, a human janitor had done what the finest minds in the galaxy could not. Watch the scene below with a mixture of wonder and disbelief. The human Danny was teaching to say the names of colors. He would point to something, say the word, and would repeat it. Red, blue, green, yellow. Each word came a little easier than the last, her rough voice smoothing out with practice. The human's approach was so simple, so obvious in hindsight. He had not treated as a patient or a problem to be solved. He had not used fancy techniques or advanced technology. He had simply sat down beside a frightened child and shown her kindness. He had offered her patience and music and the space to find her own courage. Thought of all the experts she had consulted, all the money she had spent, all the sleepless nights she had endured worrying about her daughter's future. And the solution had been this simple: a song, a smile, a human who saw a child instead of a diplomatic inconvenience. She needed to speak to this human. She needed to thank him, to reward him, to understand what he had done that no one else could do. But first, she simply needed to watch. She needed to see her daughter speaking, laughing, coming alive in a way she had never seen before. Down in the reception hall, Danny was trying to teach how to say please and thank you. These were proving more difficult than the color words, requiring combinations of sounds that inexperienced voice struggled to produce. But she kept trying, repeating the words over and over with determined concentration. She said, drawing out the vowel, please, please, thank you. Perfect, Danny said, grinning. You're doing so well, you're going to be talking circles around everyone in no time. Talking circles, repeated confused. Danny laughed. It's an expression. It means talking so much and so well that other people can't keep up. My grandma used to say my mom could talk circles around anyone. She meant it as a compliment, I think. Your grandma said slowly, your mother's mother. That's right. Was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then she asked, where is your mother now? Danny's smile faded slightly. Back on Earth, that's where I'm from. It's very far away from here. Do you miss her? The question was innocent, but it hit Danny like a blow. He had not spoken to his mother in over a year. The last time they had talked, it had ended in shouting and slammed doors and things said that could not be taken back. He had left Earth partly to escape the memory of that conversation. Yeah, he said quietly, I miss her a lot. Reached out and put her small clawed hand on his arm. Her scales were warm against his skin. I am sorry, she said. It is sad to be far from your mother. Danny blinked, surprised by the depth of empathy in her simple words. She was only 7 years old, but she spoke with a wisdom that seemed far beyond her years. Maybe being unable to speak had taught her to listen more carefully, to observe more closely. Or maybe she was just a naturally kind person, seeing the pain in others and wanting to help ease it. Thank you, Danny said. That's very sweet of you. You are welcome, she said, then smiled. I said you are welcome. That is 3 new words together. It is, Danny agreed, letting her excitement push away the sadness that had threatened to creep in. You're learning so fast. Before long, you'll know more words than me. I want to know all the words, said seriously. Every word in every language. I want to talk and never stop. That's a big goal. I have been quiet for a long time, said. Now I want to make up for it. Before Danny could respond, he heard the sound of footsteps. Heavy footsteps, the kind made by someone very large walking on stone. He looked up and felt his heart skip several beats. Ambassador was descending the main staircase. She was even more impressive up close than she was from a distance. Her burgundy scales gleamed like polished armor in the amber light. Her horns curved back from her head in elegant arcs, adorned with golden rings that marked her rank and achievements. Her wings, folded against her back, were massive, the membranes between the bones dark as old blood. And her eyes, those ancient golden eyes, were fixed directly on Danny. Danny scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding. He positioned himself slightly in front of without really thinking about it, a protective instinct left over from years of shielding his younger siblings from danger. Ambassador, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I apologize if I overstepped. I found your daughter hiding behind the plant and she seemed upset and I thought maybe. Held up one clawed hand. The gesture was not threatening, just commanding. Danny fell silent immediately. Human, she said, her voice a deep rumble that Danny felt in his chest as much as heard with his ears. What is your name? Danny Carter, ma'am, custodial staff night shift. Danny Carter, repeated. She spoke his name slowly as if testing how it felt in her mouth. Danny Carter of Earth. Yes, ma'am. Looked past Danny to where was standing. The little dragon had moved out from behind him and was watching her mother with an expression Danny could not quite read. Said softly, "Come here, child." Hesitated for just a moment. Then she walked forward, her small feet making no sound on the polished floor. She stopped in front of her mother and looked up, violet eyes meeting golden. "Mother," she said. The word hung in the air like a sacred thing. Went completely still, her great body freezing as if turned to stone. Her golden eyes, which had seen centuries of triumph and tragedy, suddenly seemed very young and very vulnerable. She whispered, "You spoke." Danny helped, said. Her voice was still rough, still unpracticed, but it was clear enough. He hummed songs, I hummed too, then words came. Looked at Danny. He could not read her expression at all. Her face was too alien, her features too different from human faces for him to interpret. Was she angry, grateful, suspicious? He had no idea. "You taught my daughter to speak," said. It was not a question. "I didn't really teach her anything," Danny said quickly. I hummed and played my harmonica, and she started humming along, and then sounds started coming out, and before I knew it she was talking. I didn't do anything special, I swear. You just treated her like a child," finished. "Not like a patient, not like a problem, not like a diplomatic incident, just a child who needed kindness." Danny was not sure what to say to that, so he just nodded. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that made Danny's jaw drop. She bowed to him. The movement was slow and deliberate, a gesture of deep respect. Her great head dipped low, her horns nearly touching the floor. Her wings spread slightly behind her, the formal position of honor among the people. "Danny Carter of Earth," she said, her voice echoing in the vast hall. "You have given my daughter her voice. Among my people there is no greater gift. You have done what the finest healers and scholars could not. You have unlocked a door that we all believed sealed forever." Danny felt his face burning with embarrassment. "Ambassador, please, I didn't." "In culture," continued, straightening from her bow, "such a debt cannot be repaid, but I will spend the rest of my life attempting to do so." She paused. "You are no longer a custodial worker, Danny Carter. You are something far more valuable." "I what?" Allowed herself a small smile, the expression strange on her dragon features but recognizable nonetheless. "My daughter has found her voice, but she will need help learning to use it. She will need someone patient, someone kind, someone who understands how to teach without pressure." She tilted her great head. "Would you be willing to help her, to visit her regularly and continue what you have started tonight?" Danny stared at her. His mind was racing, trying to process what was happening. An hour ago, he had been polishing crystals and thinking about what he would eat for dinner. Now the ambassador to human space was asking him to become her daughter's speech therapist. "I'm not qualified," he said. "I'm just a cleaner. I don't have any training or degrees or—" "You have something better," interrupted. "You have a gift. I have watched experts from across the galaxy try to help my daughter. All of them failed. You succeeded in one evening with nothing but a harmonica and a kind heart." She gestured toward who was watching the conversation with wide eyes. "Look at her, Danny Carter. Look at what you have done." Danny looked, was practically glowing with excitement. Her small wings were half spread, her tail swishing back and forth, her violet eyes bright with joy. She was mouthing words silently to herself, practicing the shapes, reveling in the feeling of sounds forming in her throat. "I want Danny to stay," said, the words coming more easily now. "I want him to teach me more words, all the words, please, mother, please." Looked at her daughter, and something in her ancient face softened. She reached down and stroked his head gently with one clawed hand. "If Danny is willing," she said, "then yes, little one, he can stay." Both dragons looked at Danny expectantly. He took a deep breath. His whole life had been leading to this moment, he realized. All those years taking care of his siblings. All those hours sitting with Lily, humming songs and waiting for her to find her voice. All the patience he had learned, All the kindness he had developed, it had all been preparation for this. "Okay," he said, "I'll do it." Made a sound of pure joy. She ran to Danny and threw her arms around him, her warm scales pressing against his uniform. He hugged her back, feeling tears threatening again. "Thank you," said into his chest. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "You're welcome," Danny said softly. "We're going to have a lot of fun, I promise." Above them, watched the embrace with something suspiciously like moisture in her golden eyes. She had ruled over diplomats and nobles and warriors, commanded fleets and shaped treaties and bent the course of history. But this, watching her silent daughter speak words of gratitude to a human janitor who had shown her kindness, this was the greatest victory she had ever witnessed. The galaxy was vast and ancient and often cruel. Species rose and fell across the span of their triumphs and tragedies forgotten by the march of time. But sometimes, in the smallest moments in the spaces between great events, miracles happened. Tonight, a human cleaner had made a dragon princess talk. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be quite the same. The night grew late, but no one wanted to leave. Danny sat on the floor teaching her new words while watched from a nearby chair that had been brought down from the upper levels. The ambassador had summoned refreshments, strange drinks that were too hot for human lips and simple human coffee for Danny, and they had settled into an impromptu celebration. Was tireless in her desire to learn. She wanted to know the names of everything, asking Danny what objects were called in human language and then practicing the words until she could say them clearly. Table, chair, light, window, cup, drink, mother, friend. When she said the word friend, while looking at Danny, he felt something warm bloom in his chest. He had not had a real friend in a long time. He had kept to himself since leaving Earth, avoiding connections that might become painful, but had broken through his walls without even trying. Her simple, innocent affection was impossible to resist. "You must have questions," said at one point, watching Danny teach the names of different Earth animals using pictures on his. "A few," Danny admitted, "but I figured it wasn't my place to ask." "Ask," said, "you have earned that right." Danny thought for a moment. How long has she been unable to speak? "Since birth," replied. 7 years of silence. 7 years of watching my daughter struggle to communicate, knowing that her mind was full of thoughts she could not express. She paused. "Do you know what that is like, Danny Carter, to watch your child suffer and be unable to help?" "I have some idea," Danny said quietly. "My sister Lily was born with a lot of problems. Heart defect, speech delays, trouble with motor control. My mom worked 2 jobs to pay for her treatments and I stayed home to take care of her. I was 12 when she was born. By the time I was 15, I knew more about her medical conditions than most doctors." "And she can speak now?" "Fluently. She's 15 now, healthy and happy and never shuts up." Danny smiled at the memory. "She wants to be a singer. She's actually pretty good." "Perhaps there is hope for as well," said, looking at her daughter with something like wonder. I had begun to believe there was not. I had begun to prepare myself for a future where she remained silent forever. Her golden eyes met Danny's. "You have given me something I had lost, Danny Carter. You have given me hope." Danny did not know what to say. Gratitude on this scale was overwhelming. He was used to being invisible, to moving through the world without making an impact. The idea that he had changed someone's life, 2 someone's actually, was almost too big to comprehend. "I'm just glad I could help," he finally said. "That is precisely why you could help," replied. "Because you did not do it for reward or recognition. You did it simply because a child was frightened and you wanted to comfort her. That kind of pure kindness is rarer than you might think." The conversation was interrupted by tugging on Danny's sleeve. "What is this animal?" she asked, pointing to a picture on the. Danny looked. "That's a dog, they're pets on Earth. Humans keep them for companionship." "Dog," repeated. "Dog, I like dogs, they look friendly." "They are friendly. Most of them anyway. Some can be mean, but most are sweet." Can I have a dog? Danny laughed and looked at. The ambassador was trying to look stern, but the corners of her mouth were twitching. We will discuss it, said in a tone that clearly meant probably not. That means no, said sagely, and Danny had to cover his mouth to hide his grin. 7 years old, mute until tonight, and she had already mastered the art of parental translation. The night continued in this way, with lessons and laughter and small moments of connection. Danny learned that loved anything to do with water, that her favorite color was green, that she wanted to visit Earth someday and see the ocean she had only read about. Learned that Danny had 5 siblings, that his grandmother had raised him as much as his mother had, that he played 3 instruments but considered himself mediocre at all of them. By the time dawn began to lighten the sky visible through the embassy's windows, they were all exhausted but happy. Had fallen asleep against Danny's side, her head resting on his arm and her small wings twitching occasionally as she dreamed. Even in sleep, her lips moved slightly, forming silent words. She is practicing, observed quietly. Even in dreams, she cannot stop practicing. She has a lot of catching up to do, Danny said. 7 years of words she's been waiting to say. Will you come back tomorrow? Danny looked at the sleeping dragon child, feeling her warmth against his side, seeing the peaceful expression on her face. Yeah, he said. I'll come back, for as long as she needs me. Then I will make the arrangements, said. Your duties will be changed. Your access will be expanded. You will be compensated appropriately for this new role. You don't have to. I know I do not have to, interrupted. I want to, there is a difference, she paused. My people have a saying, Danny Carter. Those who give voice to the voiceless speak for all of us. You have given voice to my daughter. That makes you a speaker for clan, that makes you family. Danny felt tears prick his eyes again. Family. He had not felt like he belonged to a family in a long time. His own family was shattered, scattered across Earth and barely speaking to each other. The idea of being welcomed into another family, even an alien one, even a family of dragons, filled him with an emotion he could not name. Thank you, he managed to say. Nodded, thank you, Danny Carter, for everything. She rose from her chair. Now I must take my daughter to bed. She has had an eventful night. Should I? Danny gestured uncertainly. You may carry her if you wish. She seems comfortable where she is. Danny looked down at, still sleeping soundly against his side. Very carefully, he gathered her in his arms and stood. She was lighter than he expected, her bones hollow like a bird's, evolved for flight. She stirred slightly but did not wake, just snuggled closer to his chest. This way, said, leading him toward a corridor Danny had never been allowed to enter before. They walked through hallways that grew progressively more ornate, passing guards who nodded respectfully to the ambassador and stared with barely concealed curiosity at the human carrying her daughter. Danny felt self-conscious under their attention, but he focused on keeping stable in his arms. They finally reached a room that was clearly designed for a child. The walls were painted with murals of star systems and alien planets. Toys and books were scattered across the floor. A large bed dominated one corner, covered in blankets that shimmered like captured starlight. Danny laid down gently, pulling the blankets over her small body. She murmured something in her sleep, words too quiet to make out, but words nonetheless. The sight made Danny smile. She will dream in words tonight, said softly. Perhaps for the first time, dreams she can finally give voice to. I hope they're good dreams, Danny said. With you in them, I believe they will be. Danny turned to leave, but's voice stopped him. Danny Carter. Yes, Ambassador. Call me. Among family we use first names. Danny felt something tight in his chest loosen. Okay. He paused at the door. Good night and thank you for trusting me with her. Thank you for being worthy of that trust, replied. Danny left the ambassador's quarters with his heart full and his mind racing. The walk back to his own small room in the staff quarters took only a few minutes, but it felt like miles. Everything had changed. His whole world had shifted on its axis in the space of a single night. He fell into bed without bothering to change out of his uniform. His last thought before sleep claimed him was of S's face when she spoke her first word. That look of pure wonder, of joy so intense it seemed to glow from within. He had done that. He had helped her find that. For the first time in years, Danny Carter fell asleep smiling. The next evening, Danny returned to the embassy as promised. He found waiting for him in the reception hall, practically vibrating with excitement. She ran to him the moment he appeared, wrapping her small arms around his waist. Danny, I practiced all day, listen." And she began to recite in her rough but steadily improving voice every word he had taught her the night before. Colors, numbers, animals, greetings. She got through nearly 50 words before she had to stop and catch her breath. "That's amazing," Danny said, genuinely impressed. "You remembered all of them." "I wrote them down," said proudly, "and I practiced while I slept. Mother said my lips were moving all night." Danny laughed. "Your mother is a smart lady. She notices things." "She is the person in the galaxy," declared with complete confidence. "She knows everything." "I'm sure she does." They settled into their routine. Danny would visit every evening, spending hours with, teaching her new words and helping her practice the ones she already knew. Her progress was remarkable. Within a week, she was speaking in full sentences. Within 2 weeks, she was holding basic conversations. Within a month, she was reading aloud from books and reciting poetry and singing songs that Danny taught her. Her voice, once rough and uncertain, became clear and musical. It still had a deeper quality than human voices, a resonance that came from her physiology, but it was beautiful in its own way. When she laughed, it sounded like bells. When she sang, it sounded like wind through crystal. Often joined them for these sessions, sometimes participating and sometimes just watching. Danny learned that the ambassador was a woman of few words herself, preferring to observe and listen rather than speak. But when she did speak, every word carried weight. She told Danny stories of ancient traditions and forgotten histories. She explained her daughter's place in society, the expectations she would face, the challenges that awaited her. She trusted Danny with information that most humans would never be allowed to hear, treating him as an insider rather than an outsider. In return, Danny told her about Earth, about his childhood in Cleveland, his complicated family, his reasons for leaving. He told her about Lily and how he had helped her find her voice. He told her about his grandmother who had died when he was 18 and left him feeling lost for years afterward. He told her things he had never told anyone, secrets he had buried deep within himself. Somehow, sitting in the warm amber light of the embassy, talking to an ancient alien diplomat and her once-mute daughter, Danny felt more at home than he had anywhere else in the galaxy. News of what had happened spread through the station. The other custodial workers treated Danny differently now, with a mixture of awe and jealousy. The staff, who had previously ignored him entirely, began nodding to him in the hallways. Even the other species on the station seemed to know who he was. "You're famous," told him one evening, about 2 months after their first meeting. "I'm not famous," Danny protested. "You are. Everyone talks about you. The human who made the dragon talk, the cleaner who did what the healers could not." She grinned at him. "You are a legend, Danny." "I'm just a guy who knows some songs," Danny said, embarrassed. "You are more than that," said from her chair nearby. "You are proof that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. You are proof that kindness can accomplish what power cannot. That is worth more than you know." Danny did not know how to respond to that. Praise had always made him uncomfortable. He preferred to do his work quietly and move on without fanfare. But he could not deny that something had changed in him. The darkness he had carried since leaving Earth seemed lighter now. The guilt and regret that had haunted him felt smaller, less overwhelming. Being needed, being valued, being part of something that mattered, these things were healing wounds he had not even known he had. 3 months after that first night, summoned Danny to her private office. It was a room he had never entered before, filled with artifacts from across the galaxy and dominated by a massive desk made of some black metal he did not recognize. "Sit," said, gesturing to a chair across from her. Danny sat. "I have been communicating with my government," began. "The High Council of the Empire. They have heard about its progress. They are impressed." "That's good, right?" "It is good," agreed. "It is very good. They have decided to formally recognize your contribution to our people." She paused. "Danny Carter, the High Council wishes to offer you honorary citizenship in the Empire." Danny stared at her. "What?" "It is a great honor. Only a handful of none have ever received it. You would have the same rights and protections as any citizen, including the right to travel freely within our territory, own property on our worlds, and claim the protection of our military." I don't know what to say." "Say yes," suggested. "But there is more." She leaned forward. "I would also like to offer you something personally, something that has not been offered to an outsider in over 1,000 years." Danny's mouth felt dry. "What is it?" "Adoption into clan." The word hit Danny like a physical blow. Adoption, family, a place to belong, offered by people who barely knew him, who had no obligation to care about him at all. "Why?" he managed to ask. "Why would you do that?" "Because you have earned it," said simply. "Because you treated my daughter with kindness when you had no reason to. Because you gave her something more precious than gold or power or any treasure in the galaxy. You gave her a voice, Danny Carter, and in doing so you gave her a future." She paused. "Among my people, those who give such gifts are honored forever. I want to honor you in the only way that truly matters. I want to make you part of my family." Danny sat in silence for a long moment. His mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, 1,000 memories. His family back on Earth, fractured and angry and distant. His grandmother, who had always told him that family was not about blood but about love. His sister Lily, who he had helped find her voice, just as he had helped. Family was not about blood. It was about love. It was about being there for each other, supporting each other, accepting each other. These dragons had done all of those things for him. They had accepted him when he was just a janitor. They had valued him when he felt worthless. They had given him purpose when he was lost. "Yes," Danny said. His voice was barely above a whisper, but the word filled the room like thunder. "Yes, I accept." Smiled, a rare expression on her ancient face. "Then welcome to Clan, Danny Carter. Welcome to our family." The adoption ceremony was held 1 month later on the. Danny stood in the grand hall of Clan's ancestral palace, surrounded by thousands of dragons who had come to witness the historic event. The High Council watched from elevated thrones, their ancient eyes taking in every detail. Stood beside him, holding his hand. She was dressed in ceremonial robes of purple and gold, her lavender scales gleaming in the light of 100 crystal chandeliers. She had practiced her speech for weeks, wanting to be perfect for this moment. "I present Danny Carter of Earth," she announced, her voice clear and strong. "He found me when I was lost in silence. He gave me songs when I had no voice. He taught me words when I could not speak. He is my brother, my teacher, my friend. I ask that he be accepted into our clan to be family forever." The ritual required Danny to recite an oath in the language. He had practiced for weeks, getting coaching from both, and until his pronunciation was acceptable. The words felt strange in his mouth, but he spoke them with conviction. "I pledge my loyalty to Clan. I pledge to honor its traditions, protect its members, and uphold its values. I am no longer alone. I am part of something greater. I am family." Stepped forward, carrying a ceremonial blade. She made a small cut on Danny's palm, a tradition dating back, and mingled his blood with her own. Blood to blood, she intoned. Heart to heart, spirit to spirit. From this day forward, Danny Carter of Earth is Danny Carter of Clan. He is my son in all ways that matter. He is brother to my daughter, inheritor of our legacy, guardian of our future. The crowd erupted in a sound that Danny had never heard before, the equivalent of applause, a deep rumbling that shook the floor beneath his feet. Threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at the same time. "You are my brother now," she said, "forever and ever." "Forever and ever," Danny agreed, holding her tight. Later, at the celebration feast, Danny found himself standing on a balcony overlooking the alien landscape of the twin moons hung in a purple sky, casting silver light over mountains that made Earth's highest peaks look like hills. The air was warm and thick, carrying scents of flowers he had no names for. Joined him, her burgundy scales almost black in the moonlight. "You seem thoughtful," she observed. "I'm thinking about my grandmother," Danny said. "She always told me that home wasn't a place, it was people. She said I'd know I found home when I found people worth staying for." He paused. "I think she was right." "Your grandmother sounds wise." "She was," Danny smiled. "She would have liked you. She always said the best people were the ones who didn't waste words." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I hope I would have liked her as well." They stood in silence for a while, watching the moons traverse the alien sky. "What happens now?" Danny asked eventually. "Now you live," said. "You teach, you learn our ways, you find your place among us." She glanced at him. "And perhaps you send a message to your family on Earth. Tell them you are well. Tell them you have found a new home but have not forgotten the old one." Danny nodded slowly. The rift with his family still hurt, but the pain seemed more manageable now. He had grown. He had changed. Maybe it was time to try mending what had been broken. "I'll think about it," he said. "That is all I ask." They returned to the feast together, this human and this dragon, this janitor-turned-family member, this ancient diplomat who had found hope in the most unexpected place. The celebration continued through the night, full of laughter and music, and the sound of his voice rising above it all, singing songs her brother had taught her. In the years that followed, the story of the human cleaner who made the mute dragon talk would spread throughout the galaxy. It would be told in nurseries and schools, repeated in diplomatic circles, studied by scholars who wanted to understand the strange bond between humans and. But for Danny, it was never about fame or recognition. It was always about something simpler. A little girl hiding behind a plant. A harmonica and a song. And the moment when silence became voice, when isolation became connection, when two souls from different worlds found each other and became family. That was worth more than all the stars in the sky. That was home,